I was scrolling through Instagram yesterday and I saw this cute girl, very attractive, just dancing around doing like some, like some TikTok dance. Nothing special. You see that all over the place. However, I went to the comment section and I just saw the most negative comment section of all time. I mean, everybody hated this girl. Girls hated her, guys hated her, people hated her. There's everybody. There's like not a single positive comment. So I was very confused. I was like, all right, cute, attractive girl doing an innocent TikTok dance. Why do people hate her so much? And so I went through some of her other videos and similar thing, just dancing around, doing whatever. Everybody hated her. And then I saw this one comment and it said, hey, any of you guys familiar with her rated X content? And I was like, what? And so, I did a little bit of research. I didn't see too much. I am a proponent of NoFap after all. But she does some spicy content, and it's not just like the spicy content that they kind of act as if they like do all the stuff that guys want to see, and then you sign up for their OnlyFans, and then like nothing, it's kind of a big letdown. No, she goes all the way. If you go to like the P Hub and stuff, you could find her content. All right. And so at that point, it made me think, okay, is there a correlation between P stars and people just absolutely hating them, and why? And so once I started to think that, I looked through more of her content on Instagram, and I saw that there were these videos of her just like, she owns like a bunch of nice cars. She has like the futuristic Tesla truck or whatever it is, the one that Elon Musk threw a rock at it and it broke the window when it's not supposed to, that one. And then she also had like a Lambo, a really nice Lambo. And she would do stupid things to it, like jump on top of the roof and like break the windshield or whatever. Basically just kind of implying, oh, I'm super rich, And so obviously people really hated her for that one. I mean, even if you made your money in a legitimate way, people would not like that, right? Because you're just flexing your money a little bit too much. But I think it's the combination of both her flexing her money and the fact of what she does for a living is what's really pissing people off. And I find that very interesting because we live in a world now where we're supposed to all be like sexually liberated and stuff, right? So I found it very weird why everybody was so full of hatred in the comment section. But I think after doing some thinking about it and thinking about like what past great minds have said about it, to help me do some thinking, I was like, okay, I think this makes sense. So I'm going to explain that here in this video. I think it comes down to a few things. So if we lived in a different universe where she was just some, good-looking girl that did some OnlyFans content but wasn't really making that much money from it, maybe the comment section would be a little bit different. I still think that there would be a lot of hate behind it, but I think what it comes down to is the fact that the system that we live in, the capitalist consumerist system that we live in theory, money is supposed to be a way in which we quantify value, right? And if that's the case, then whoever is contributing most to society should be the ones that are being rewarded the most, in theory. And I think, all of us, we live day to day. We go to work, we work jobs we don't like, 9 to 5, we're sacrificing, slaving away. At the end of the day, we barely have any money left. We can't even live and enjoy life. We're constantly like worried about finances, especially younger people. And so you're always reminded of that day to day in your own life, that's just actually not that fair, right? And then sometimes, you shield yourself away from that reality. People go to Instagram to like escape, for example. So when they see that, they're reminded of the system that they're in, that they believe to be unfair, that not the highest value people are actually being rewarded with, monetarily. And instead, low quality people who are feeding or preying, I should say, off of the weaknesses of certain people and profiting off of it, and then flexing it, is shown on display. And all that's sort of epitomized through this, jelly bean girl or whatever the hell her name is. If you look back to the ancient Greek philosophers, it's very rare for you to see them talk with reverence about a wealthy merchant. Typically, they revere noblemen, warriors, poets, philosophers. I mean, Socrates himself believed that the head of the society should be a philosopher king, right? He believed that everybody was born with a certain type of soul. A gold soul is the philosopher king. A silver soul is like the warrior. A bronze soul is like the servant, the farmer. And from my recollection, he doesn't really talk about like which soul the merchant belongs in, from what I remember. And I think that's quite deliberate, because people who accumulate wealth just for the sake of accumulating wealth, they're not trustworthy. They don't live for anything more. Again, the entire point of the monetary system, the entire point of all of that is to quantify value. How is this valuable to society? How is this valuable to our tribe? And so if somebody is just hoarding all of it, even if they technically earned it, if they earned it off of devaluing society, devaluing the values that your society supposedly holds, then that's dirty money. That's not something that should be praised or be admirable or praiseworthy. Am I sitting here saying that we should demonize sex or anything like that? I'm not, or some sex puritan. No, I'm not saying that. However, it's very concerning, and I'm not the first person to say this, but I think it's very concerning that OnlyFans models, P-stars especially, there's some of like the richest young people that there are now. I think that's extremely concerning, because what are they profiting off of? They're profiting off of the loneliness of men. And we all deep down, men especially, but even other women, understand that that's not something that's good, that that's not something that should be praised. In fact, it should be something that's extremely contemptible. I can only really speak from a man's perspective, but let's say, because somebody might be like, oh, well, you're hating on her, but then at the same time, you're subscribed to her OnlyFans. I mean, I'm not personally, but you could probably predict that a lot of the guys who follow her, even maybe some of the guys who say negative things about her, are secretly subscribed to her, right? But I think that argument is similar to saying like, oh, you're a fat person. Like if you see somebody who's overweight, oh, because you're fat, and you like candy and you eat it so much, then why are you against regulations or taxing high sugar foods? You're the ones that's benefiting from it the most. You engage in it the most. Well, what we know about human beings, sex, food, are highly addictive, especially highly palatable foods. So it's like, okay, the fat person can't help themselves. Sure, maybe they can work on their willpower or whatever, but they're not, if they could have it their way, they wouldn't be addicted to that thing, right? And I think it's the same way with men. If we could have it our way, we wouldn't let women have so much power over us. That's why there's so much content about saying, hey, don't let women have so much power over you. That would only exist if there was the reality that women have a lot of power over men. Same thing with social media. Oh, you're against social media. Why not quit? Why do you use it? Well, that's how I stay in contact with my family. That's how I stay up to date with everything news-wise that's happening in the world, because I give a shit about what's happening in the world. Like I have to be on social media. So it's all these things combined. It's like being forced or feeling forced to be on social media, being a part of a system that you really don't appreciate or you feel like is corrupt and it's unfair, being reminded or seeing somebody who's contemptible that has power over you, profiting off of that and shoving it in your face. All of these things combined kind of are epitomized in this young OnlyFans girl. And what I predict is going to happen more and more in the future is that these types of women are going to be shamed more and more and more and more. People are going to hate them more and more and more and more and more as society becomes more decadent, as people, especially men, become more introverted and they resort to things like paying for OnlyFans and stuff because they struggle to experience that stuff in their real life. I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I don't like being one of these like doomsayer, doomy guys, but it looks like society's sort of been trending that way for a while now, especially with social media and the advent of the internet and how powerful information can travel across and whatnot, and being able to monetize very base human desires, such as sex. And to add on top of that, the material circumstances that we're going through now in a post-COVID world. I think it's very concerning, man. It's very concerning. And, you know, not every single video that I make is always going to have a point. A lot of times what I try to do on this channel is I just try to ask the right questions to get people to think. But in this video, I do think I actually have a little bit of a solution. I think the solution is this. Get the fuck out of the West. That's what I've done. I live in the Far East now. I'm away from a lot of the BS. Every time I go back to the US, I get kind of sucked back into that culture a little bit again. I'm not poisoned by it too much that I can't get out, but I still feel it when I get back. And I still feel it out here too, because America basically runs the world, contrary to what some people might believe. Especially the US dollar. You can see that firsthand if you actually travel around the world a lot, how much power the US really has. But at the very least, living abroad helps you be a little bit away from the noise, especially if you go to an Eastern culture. You see that this sort of pedestalizing of sex and money is a fabrication. It's not real. It's something that certain societies value and others not so much. Like here, they still value those things in the sense that it's part of being human, but they don't create a bunch of stuff to try to actually pedestalize that, if that makes sense. Like, especially in Eastern culture, there's a lot of the emphasis of suffering, the root of suffering is desire, right? That's kind of like a Buddhist idea. And on top of that, there's this Confucian idea of these sort of responsibilities that you have to your family, to your friends, to society, which aren't so obvious in a heavily capitalistic world, especially back in the US. And so you feel a little bit less of those pressures in your real life living out here. And so you can see the BS a lot more for how it is. I think a lot of the insights that I have about culture, especially Western culture, is because I'm detached from it. I'm away from it. So it's easier for me to kind of identify and see what it is. But it's also important that I've actually lived in that culture, that I come from that culture. Because otherwise, most other people won't understand the subtle nuances of it, right? So I've been in that, I've been outside of it, and I've lived outside of it for years now. So I can see the BS for how it is from a bird's eye view. And I think it makes me feel like I'm not really missing anything back home, but it saddens me also because, that is my home, right? But I think it really helps to just get out. And look, use the power of the dollar for arbitrage, man. $1 in the US is probably worth $5 where I live here. And I live a great life here. I love it. And I like that it's a bit more of a conservative culture where people don't just fetishize women, fetishize sex, or put it up too much on a pedestal, sex and money, all that bullshit, right? You can actually live a bit less like a degenerate here. So that's the solution. And anyway, I just found it interesting. I wanted to make a video about it. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.